Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Freelancers Tea Break, the short and sweet podcast you can enjoy while you're having a cuppa. And this is probably going to be the last episode of the Freelancers Tea Break for 2024, unless suddenly I decide to do something extra. I think I'm probably going to be finishing up for the year here. It's been a strange and challenging year for lots of freelancers, and lots and lots of ups and downs. So I thought I'd share some of my kinds of ups and downs, but also some of the things that are going on in the wider world of freelancing, and just a few highlights and things like that as well. So, this year there's been some really lovely highlights for me. I've worked with more coaching clients than ever, particularly on Voxer and through accountability. That's gone down particularly well, I think, because I'm working with more and more neurodivergent clients. I still work with a very neurodiverse range of clients, but I found that understanding and the experience of working with people with ADHD in particular, but also autism, and that the rule book for neurotypical people isn't one that necessarily applies with them. So the accountability in the box seems to work really well for my clients there. So that's been really, really good fun, and really interesting. I have also completed my Understanding Autism certificate, which I found so fascinating. I think I've talked about that in a previous episode when I talked about some of the things I'm implementing in my business to make it more neurodiverse, but essentially more autistic friendly or suitable for those with autism. And that was also a free course. I'll put the link in the description, but it was a really thorough free course, and you have to do like little examinations and things like that through it. But it has given me so much more of a better understanding, and because a lot of my clients are ADHD and autistic, I felt it was really, really important to get a really thorough understanding. So that's been really interesting. It's also been the year that I had finally launched a standalone version of the Freelance Business Lounge. I've had it as a membership for several years and I've absolutely loved it, but I didn't necessarily want to grow the membership anymore because it's really important for me that everybody gets a chance on the calls that we have to speak. And if there are too many people, that wouldn't be something that happens. And the community in there is so important for me that it was quality over quantity. But I had all those resources and I needed to create a way that I could share them with more people without having any problems with the membership, I think. So I created a standalone version, which I sold for Black Friday, and I had some great sales on that. And that's now gone back to its normal price. So it's really good that I can offer that to people who want all of the courses and 30 days to go freelance, all the trainings and everything like that, without having to go through the membership option. I think there's also probably the biggest thing for me this year is I've just got such a wonderful, solid team. I've got Jo, who I've been working with for years, and both Alicia and Laura came on board this year, and that's been fantastic. Laura has been dealing with all the reels for me, and that's actually one of the things I've had the most comments about this year, that I'm showing up so much more on reels, and people seem to be really enjoying them. I'm not afraid to be silly, so it's gone down quite well. So do follow me over there at Emma Cossey. Laura and I meet up every month and we just record a big batch of reels. Funny enough, today I've just done a big batch for December and January. So we just recorded a batch for over several hours and then Laura goes away and creates her magic. So that's been really fantastic and I've had such lovely feedback and it's helped me really connect with people more. And Alicia has joined and she's been helping with all sorts of things like the podcast editing and graphics and sort of other admin bits behind the scenes. And I also started working with Harriet I think it was this year or it would have been late last year, who does my accounts, my bookkeeping, and she's brilliant. And that's been so much easier. I barely even have to think about it now, which is lovely. So the team has been so wonderful and it's been something that's been growing over, a few years. And I've had lots of support through Access to Work as well, which has been incredible. Although I'm fully aware that I might not get quite so lucky in the next renewal of that. So I'm going to see what happens. But access to it does seem to be very up and down. So it's an intriguing thing to process. And I thought it might be useful to share a few of the highlights from the podcast as well, seeing as you're listening. So I think the notable episodes were probably, I had loads of feedback from the Sarah Wayte one that was probably about 6 months ago now. Sarah came on, she's a copywriter, but she was talking about her lead magnet that is essentially an audit that she was offering, like a free website copy audit. So it's not passive income because she has to do a personalized one for each person, but it works so well. And actually I ended up working with Sarah because I saw that offer somewhere through, I think, a mutual person that we follow. And then I ended up signing up because I just thought what she did was so brilliant. So I thought it was a really good opportunity to dive into something a bit different, not the usual kind of, here's all the lead magnets that you need to do, the PDFs, the trainings. This was something a bit more personalized, but therefore then created that deeper connection. I also chatted with Joan Hooper, and that one got a lot of comments on YouTube. But we were talking about rejecting hustle culture and breaking sort of business rules, but also feminism and capitalism and patriarchy. That's why I didn't get any good views on that, because there were some people that did not like what we were saying, but there were a lot of people that really related to it. Or still now, and it's been several months since that episode, and people will pop up and go, oh, I remember what Joe said on your podcast. So that one really resonated with a lot of people. And I also had Gail Doggett on, who she's my book coach. So she is helping me write my book on freelancing. Very slow and steady. But it is definitely, I've made so much progress on it this year, and that's thanks to Gail. And I think the amazing thing about Gail in particular is she talks about writing a book if you have ADHD, because all the things we're told when writing a book, like consistency, make sure you're writing habits every single day, blah, blah, blah. That really does not apply if you've got ADHD. And she has so many better ways of doing it. So if you have the threads of a book in your brain, but you don't think you can do it, I would highly recommend checking out that episode. And I think I had several episodes this year on AI. The good and the bad. It's definitely impacting freelancers, but in both a good and a bad way. I've seen some cycles really of when a certain AI tool will come out, it will affect one industry, and then it tends to kind of circle around and people come back. So for example, this is particularly copywriters. When ChatGPT first came out, people were like, oh, I could just get all my content off there. I don't need a copywriter. And then they just created reams and reams of content. And then they looked at that content and went, oh my God, this is such a big job. I have to go through and add warmth and humor, or, whatever it is that AI cannot do. And they end up going back to those same copywriters and saying, can you help me with this? Like, can you either edit it, or can you rewrite it, or just start from scratch as a human? I've seen the same cycle with photographers as well. So I think we will still see this where people think, oh, AI is the fix for everything. It's not. What I would say is with AI is it's the launch pad, or it's the blank page solver. So even writing this, doing this podcast this week, I kind of went on there and said, what would I put in for a review of the year? And it gave me an idea. And honestly, 70 to 80% I ignored, but it gave me 20% to get started. And I think that is the key thing. And also, as someone with ADHD, I find it very useful for drip feeding me work, for even just creating some ideas, or I love that I can write some things in there. It can turn it into a table for me, things like that. So, and in Notion in particular, it's been very, very useful. So other things that I wanted to mention are some kind of trends that I've seen in freelancing. So this year was we had lockdown. So that forced a lot of companies to go into working remotely or offering hybrid. And this year, some of the big companies decided to U-turn on that and say, no, you all need to be back in the office. I don't know whether it's because they have very expensive office to run, or It's not necessarily productivity, because most of the studies suggest that it is more productive to offer this kind of hybrid working or remote working. But, so companies have said they're going to come back. This has meant that people have either left and gone freelance, or some companies are now embracing freelancers a little bit more because of that flexibility. But it's an interesting change. And also there's the 4-day work week, which has been coming to the end of its trials this year. And I think they've expanded it. There's a lot of really good feedback on the 4-day work weeks. Equally, there's some companies who are just squeezing 5-day work weeks into 4 days. And that's not the same thing. That wasn't generally the same plan. And that's forcing some people to go into freelancing as well. So I think we're seeing a growth in freelancers, because what initially had been a little bit of a silver lining of lockdown, of having that hybrid working or remote working, or basically forcing companies to finally do it, has been pulled back a little bit. So I think we're seeing a little bit of that in freelancing. And there has been some movements to support small businesses, but also there's been some real downsides. So, for example, the Small Business Commissioner, they've introduced just this month, actually, like an incentive where they've got a bronze, silver and gold scheme, awards, basically, if you are a fast payer. The trouble is, it's not the fast payers that are the problem, or incentivizing good payers to be great payers. It's dealing more with those people who are not paying on time. And there are things that we can be doing to avoid things like that, whether it's payment up front, whether it's looking at things that go cardless, where the money will be taken out of their accounts, so you don't have to wait for invoicing and things like that. I will say the Small Business Commissioner website is pretty good. It's got some great stuff on there about how to chase payments, and I think they've got some services on there to help you with that. And it's all run by the government. But I still think there's more that can be done. Plus, there's issues around legislation, particularly I think the issues around the lack of legislation around AI and the limits of AI. And I know this is something that probably a lot of people are thinking, I need to be looking at my contracts and seeing what I have in there about AI. But I do think I don't quite understand why the governments aren't doing more to limit what AI can do in terms of the creative industries in particular. And also, I think the government could be doing more to be supporting us in terms of the payments and things like that. There's also, they brought in some things around national insurance, which, if you are a small business owner who has employees, that's going to have quite a big impact negatively next year. So I really don't like that, because actually small businesses have really struggled this year. It's been a hard year. We're still recovering from COVID and lockdown. Cost of living is ridiculous. I'm intrigued what the new government, and I'm hopeful of what the new government will do. But it's been a really hard year for most freelancers I know. It's been a year of survive, not thrive. So we shall see what happens. But I do think small businesses need to be supported. They're not the ones that need to be funding improvements. It probably needs to be those bigger businesses that are avoiding taxes and things. So that's sort of a few insights about what's been happening generally. Yeah, it's been a really good year in a lot of ways. It's been challenging. I have had more challenges this year in terms of juggling parenting and freelancing. But the joy of freelancing is that I can do that. Like, I can juggle things. I can go to meetings. I can bring in like extra support or anything like that, which I know I don't think I would be able to do if I was self-employed, if I was employed rather. So, yeah, I've really enjoyed using a lot of the different channels out there this year as well. TikTok, LinkedIn. Thankfully, people have left, or the nice people seem to have left X and joined Blue Sky, and that's been a really lovely place to really reconnect and things like that. I also just wanted to add a note that one of the things I'm seeing a lot of freelancers saying is, I can't find clients. But then if you go on people's social media sites, they're not clearly stating what their services are or who they help, or even telling people what their offers are. So if you are finding that you are struggling to find clients at the moment, make sure that if someone just glances at your socials, they can see how they can work with you and how you can help them, because it's such a simple thing to do, but it can have such an impact. And we have so many different ways of finding clients now, which you'll know if you've got any kind of freebies, you'll know. And I'll pop some of them in the show notes. I have freebies about all the different ways to find clients, whether it's through social media, podcasts, blog posts, newsletters, networking, pitching, referrals, PR. There's so many different ways you can find clients. This year has kind of been a lesson in exploring different ways, seeing what works. And if it doesn't work, stop doing it and find a different way. And there are so many different ways. So you don't have to do everything, but definitely try different things. Anyway, I've gone off a massive tangent. So I just want to summarize by also saying thank you so much for everybody that has been in the Facebook group this year. And it's been so lovely to chat to so many people on Instagram as well and get to know people even better through there. And thank you for listening to the podcast, because I love doing this, and it's been going for so many years, but it's been the last few years, it's been really consistent, and it's just been so lovely to have people drop me a message to say they listened to this, or they found that useful, or they share it on Instagram, which I really appreciate. Oh, and one final thing that I always forget to ask, if you do enjoy the podcast, first of all, let me know if there's anything you want me to cover next year. But second of all, I would really appreciate it if you could take one moment to just rate it particularly on Spotify or iTunes, or Apple Podcasts. I don't know what we're calling it now. They really, really help. And I'd love to really grow my podcast next year and reach even more people. So I'm going to close out this episode. It's been a bit of a chatty one, bit of a kind of a ponder around things, but I basically just wanted to share how this year's gone and just basically acknowledge that it has been a tough year for lots of us, but there have been lots of positives as well. And I feel like there is going to be some positives going into the future. We just need the right support, hopefully, from the channels above a little bit to do that. I'd love to know any of your highlights as well. Come let me know on Instagram. Otherwise, I hope you have a great freelance week, but also a great end of the year, and I will see you in January.